Welcome back. This is the Ben Shapiro Show, taking your calls at 855-236-3228. That's 855-236-3228. B in Wyoming, you're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, B.
Hi. So earlier today, I was chatting in a debate group with some folks in the UK and Canada, and they said the quality of life is better there than in the U.S. One of them actually used to be a U.S. citizen. They argued that there's less poverty, better education, and that they also prefer the healthcare systems in their countries. A number of Americans joined in, and they seem to strongly agree. So I'm quite outnumbered. I'm just curious how you would respond.
Okay, so a few things that are fairly obvious. The United States does have a significantly larger GDP per capita than Canada. Canada has about $46,000 per capita. The United States has about $63,000 per capita, which is a significantly larger sum. As far as healthcare, you sort of have to determine what you want. Do you want immediate access to the surgeries that you want, in non-times of pandemic? Do you want the ability to try treatments that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get? Do you want a rationed care system? Are you most worried about emergency care without having insurance? That is a question of choice. So I would prefer to live in a system where I have insurance and where my insurance means that I can basically get what I need on demand at any time, right? There's a reason people travel from Canada to the United States for surgery. They don't travel from the United States to Canada or the United States to the UK. As far as the educational system, it depends on where you're talking about. So if you're talking about the university system, the United States blows away Canada, blows away the UK. We have easily the best university system on planet Earth. It is not particularly close. And if you look at the lower education system, you have to really determine which area you are talking about, because the fact is that that is really not a question so much of are the teachers worse in certain areas of the United States than other areas of the United States, or a question of mere funding. It's a question of parental structure. How much time are parents spending with their kids on homework? It's a question of how much time are parents spending with their kids learning to read. Education is nearly always a function of familial structure. And areas where parents spend a lot of time with their kids on education, the schooling tends to be almost a secondary concern. As far as sort of quality of life and ease of living, if you're talking about the availability of government benefits, there's more availability of government benefits in places like Canada. There's more availability of government benefits in places like the UK. If you're talking about the opportunity for entrepreneurship, for making something of yourself, building your own business, leading a freer life, then the United States is obviously better. So it depends what you're looking for. And it depends on whether you feel like you're integrating in a community, that you found people that you share values with. It's very hard to compare apples to oranges, especially when you're talking about, like, if you look at countries that say they're happy, countries in Norway, Denmark, Sweden, very, very high levels of social compatibility and social fabric. Also, extremely monochromatic, very little diversity in a lot of those societies. And so everybody sort of thinks in similar fashion because there's a lot of commonality and shared background. In areas of more diversity, you get more diversity. That's definitely an upside. It's also, the possibility for more conflict. So again, you get to choose, but it depends on the metrics that you are using. If you're using objective metrics like where are you most able to make a lot of money, where are you most able to live free, where are you most able to practice your religion without interference by the government, right? Those are all values to me. The United States blows away Canada and the UK on all of those metrics. If you're looking for government largesse, then probably you should look for a place that is not the United States, or travel yourself over to Massachusetts or California.
Okay.
So again, it all depends on metrics, and definitions are pretty key here. So I really appreciate the call. Let's see, Mark in Israel. You're on the Ben Shapiro Show. Go for it, Mark.
Hi, Ben. I've heard your colleagues speak in the past about the virtues of the Crusades, how it was really a military response to a Muslim oppression and trade issues. I was wondering if you can give a Jewish perspective on that.
Well, I mean, so here's the thing. Nothing that happens on planet Earth is generally good for the Jews for like a couple thousand years, right? Between the destruction of the Second Temple and the establishment of the State of Israel, things don't go so hot for the Jews, just historically speaking. The Crusades were very bad for the Jews. A lot of Christian armies that were moving from Europe over into the Middle East would slaughter Jews on their way. The Muslim treatment of Jews at the time was generally better than the Christian treatment of Jews at the time. But again, that changes over time. So it's not as though if the Crusades had never happened, then the Jews would have been significantly better off, because it turns out that the Muslims ended up taking over the exact area that the Christians were holding for a couple of centuries in the middle of the Crusades. In terms of the Middle East, things didn't end up going so hot for the Jews there either. So from the Jewish perspective, history basically looks like things are topsy-turvy for about 1,000 years, for about 1,200 years. and then things suck radically for almost 2 millennia. And then things start to get a lot better starting post-World War II. That is the brief story of Jewish history in a nutshell, Mark.
If I could throw an idea out there for an election night joint live stream of the top 3 networks, that would be the Daily Wirecast, the Bill Whittle team, and the Louder with Crowder crew.
That'd be a kick. That'd be a kick. We'll probably do some of that. We did that last election cycle. Bill stopped by on 2016. It was fun, and obviously Louder with Crowder Skyped in. So we'll probably end up doing something like that. Appreciate the following, and also appreciate you listening to the show. Alrighty. So meanwhile, I got some bad news. Here's an article from the Jerusalem Post that suggests that, in fact, the coronavirus may not be susceptible to a vaccine, which is just, the reason, obviously, that is a bad thing is that everybody is sort of suggesting that a vaccine is going to fix all of this. It may be that this is just the background to normal life, that now coronavirus is the new normal, and we are going to just have to deal with that. We're going to have to deal with the increased risk in American life, that over time herd immunity will be developed, because that is the only counter to a vaccine long term, right? Or treatments or herd immunity. That's it. Those are the only 3 options: vaccine, herd immunity, treatment. If vaccines are off the table, treatment is on the table, and we are working toward treatments steadily. And herd immunity is just enough people get it that at that point, basically everybody has developed antibodies for this thing. The problem is that if it's not susceptible to a vaccine, then herd immunity may not work great either, simply because the virus may mutate, and then you have a flu vaccine that is only 60% effective, and herd immunity is only a certain percent effective. So all of this is just wonderful, wonderful stuff. This is bad news, but we're going to have to make some hard decisions. And anybody who suggests that hard decisions do not have to be made, that these are all easy decisions, is lying to you. Right? There are going to be risks. There are going to be rewards. There is no easy answer here. There is no world in which this thing just sort of disappears and we all go back to normal in the very near future. We're going to have to just deal with the fact that there's increased risk in life. And then we're going to have to figure out how to trench populations back into the workforce and protect people who are vulnerable. This is the Ben Shapiro Show.